this star running back probably isn't going to play in week 7. Welcome to Fantasy Football Free for All. This is our week 7 injury report. It is the big show. We're halfway through the fantasy season and injuries are starting to pile up. We're going to go each and every team's major injuries this week. Let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. We've got Deandre Hopkins. Yeah, he's fine. He missed practice on Wednesday, but he's not in risk of missing week 7. That guy controls his own schedule. You're good to go. For the Falcons, Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley both came back in a huge way. And what they proved to us is even if they miss practice, it doesn't matter. You got to roll them out there. The upside is just so high. For the Ravens, Mark Ingram is questionable with an ankle injury. He's on bye this week. I would be dropping him. Get him out of your lineup. He's not Mark Ingram of old. He has crossed the threshold of a running back by committee without any real benefit to this team. It's just not worth your time, your bench spot, your fab dollars. Get him out there. In Buffalo, we've got 2 injuries, Dawson Knox and John Brown. Smokey John Brown is the player I'm really looking at because if he misses time, it sees a slight uptick for Cole Beasley, a slight uptick for Gabriel Davis, and major uptick for Stephon Diggs. For the Panthers, we're still waiting for CMC. I think that's what I would call this episode, is waiting for CMC. All the rest of these injuries are but Christian McCaffrey could be back next week. CMC is on the horizon. If you've waited this long, keep him in that IR spot or keep him on your bench. On that same team, though, we've got Curtis Samuel. I'm not anticipating Curtis Samuel to play with that knee injury. It's not like anybody was super reliant on him anyway. See a slight uptick, DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. The Bengals now. The Bengals, this is an interesting issue because Joe Mixon left halfway through the game. He tried to come back. We saw Giovanni Bernard just kind of like push his way in there. And I think that Joe Mixon's actually hurt. This foot injury, it nagged him. He didn't look explosive. He missed practice. I think if we don't see something or don't hear some positive news by Saturday morning, you've got to fade him and start looking for other options. The Browns are just absolutely riddled with injuries, but they're all questionable. Baker Mayfield, rib injury. They pulled him out of last week's game just because it was a drubbing. They didn't want him to take more injury. I think he's good to play. Jarvis Landry with that hip rib injury, he's questionable. Kareem Hunt, he's got a ribs injury as well. I think he's going to be fine. I expect him to go. I think we got to watch to make sure that there isn't some news that comes through. On Saturday morning that says that got worse, but otherwise you're locking him in as an RB1, especially against this Bengals defense that doesn't scare anybody. Obviously, for the Cowboys, Dak Prescott is still out. He's going to be out until next season. This will be the last time we mention it, but we wish him the best. The Broncos, KJ Hamler and Noah Fant. I would give them a chance. I think they both have a shot to return. But I don't think Noah Fant or KJ Hamler are any options that I'm rolling out unless they get at least Friday under their belt in practice. For the Lions, Marvin Jones, listen, folks, Marvin Jones has been an utter disappointment this year, and it's partially because that team's just a mess. I would be going elsewhere. Don't even waste your time. I think he's probably going to play, but you shouldn't be starting him. The Green Bay Packers. Robert Tonyan is questionable. Equanimous St. Brown, questionable. Other than Robert Tonyan, St. Brown, I'm not going near. And if he plays, he's a start, but there's a real shot he doesn't play this week. For Houston, Jordan Akins, he's got a concussion and he's got an ankle injury. I don't expect him to play this week. For the Colts, speaking of Trey Burton, we've got Michael Pittman Jr. out. Paris Campbell's obviously on IR, and Mo Alley Cox is out. So that sees a huge uptick for Trey Burton And I think Trey Burton's a tight end 1 this week. Jacksonville, man, are there some injuries on this receiving core. We've got DJ Chark with an ankle injury. We've got Laviska Shenault with a hamstring injury. And we've got Tyler Eifert with a neck injury. Tyler Eifert dealt with back injuries his whole career. He's out. He's done. Don't waste your time. We wish him the best, a speedy recovery, but he's not a fantasy asset for you anymore. Laviska Shenault, you need to watch. I bet he plays just because he's a gutty player, but I'm not super excited about his prospects. DJ Chark, listen, he's a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 with upside. You're probably rolling him out. If we hear anything on Saturday morning about this ankle injury getting worse, maybe then you say, okay, well, we're going to pause. But unless you hear something negative, you got to put him in there. The Chiefs are pretty healthy. They get Le'Veon Bell this week. I think Le'Veon sees a limited workload. This is his first week with the team, and especially CEH, he ran like a man. But Sammy Watkins is questionable this week with a hamstring. Listen, you're not going to Sammy Watkins. You're not. Sammy Watkins is not the player he was 5 years ago. He's not the player he was last year. For the Raiders, now this is interesting because Bryan Edwards is on the injury report, but they sent home the entire offensive line. This game was moved from Sunday night to Sunday afternoon. Be aware, I think there's a real shot that this Raiders game does not happen. You've got Henry Ruggs, you've got Derek Carr, you've got Waller the Baller, or Josh Jacobs, and you're counting on them. Make sure you have other options because this game is going to be flexible. Unless we get some great news about these players in the next couple of days, count on this game not happening. For the Chargers, Justin Jackson, we've got Keenan Allen, both questionable. This could be the day Justin Jackson breaks out, but with that knee injury, I'm not sure. Keenan Allen, if he has a back injury that he sustained in that Saints game, you're going to start him if he's there. If he sits, I am all over Mike Williams. Mike Williams might be my favorite player of the week if he sits. So in New England, Julian Edelman has a knee injury. Look, this team is in shambles. The COVID issue has kind of gone through this system. They didn't get to prepare. That game last week, I think, is an outlier. But I want one more week to see. But he's staying on my bench until I can see that this team gets right. Maybe that's this week. Maybe it's not. For the Jets, listen. Jamison Crowder is questionable with a groin injury. If he plays, you're playing him. He's the only Jets player that is of any interest to me in any format. Pittsburgh Steelers, Juju Smith-Schuster, questionable with a knee injury. I'm keeping Juju on my bench, but it's only because I would have FOMO if I didn't. The 49ers, woof. This team, I don't know how they're even fielding a team. We've got Jeff Wilson is questionable. Raheem Mostert is questionable. I mean, I guess we're looking at Hagee. I guess we're looking at McKinnon. But I'm not excited about this team either. But I do think Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, they're both must-starts this week. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we have Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, and Scotty Miller, all questionable. I think they're all going to start in Week 7. They're all limited participants. Look, if Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are starting, you're starting them. Jonnu Smith is questionable for the Tennessee Titans. He is the big weapon that will be missing if he can't go. And, man, I don't think he's going to start in Week 7. Finally, the Washington football team. Logan Thomas is the only guy on here that you were even maybe considering, and he's questionable with a neck injury. Man, I don't think he's playing in Week 7. I don't think you should play him even if he does. I would look elsewhere. Thanks for watching the Injury Report. Hit us up on Twitter or in the comment section. And thank you for watching.